Hey, what's going on, Dan? How you doing?
Hello.
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. Thanks for doing the podcast with us today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
We are really looking forward to this. And by the way, this is Ed Sarah. This is one of my best friends and also my jiu-jitsu professor.
Awesome.
He doesn't probably love that I call him that, but I call him it anyway. So, but yeah, we've I've definitely known about you for quite some time. Obviously, a lot of people do in the jiu-jitsu community. But the other reason we wanted to do this podcast too is I run a powerlifting gym in Chicago,
Nice.
but over the years we've become a lot more than that. We have a strongman aspect to the gym now. There's a huge strength conditioning part of it. We train clients in all aspects of life and goals. And then a lot of people in the our jiu-jitsu academy is inside of the gym. So a lot of our martial arts students have actually sort of taken over the gym as well. And now there's an element of all these, grapplers and kickboxers in there.
Awesome.
They're getting strong for different reasons as well. And so over time, I've followed your social media for forever now, and I realized I'm like, man, I really think we should have this guy on and obviously talk about martial arts. But then obviously you have your whole garage set up and your interest in strength and kind of oddities, if you will, of training. And so I really appreciate you doing this with us.
My pleasure. Sounds good.
Ed and I were talking before the podcast, and I think one really good way to start this is that we were curious how you got into jiu-jitsu originally. We all know a lot about you as far as your competitions and sort of your style. We've watched a lot of videos of you, but we don't really know what your origin story is.
Sure. I mean, it's nothing particularly interesting. I started training. I originally started at a Japanese Jiu Jitsu, traditional Jiu Jitsu academy, and I was about 14, 15 years old. And I was there for about 6 months or so. And after about 6 months, one of the instructors left, and the other instructor took over, who had been training Jiu Jitsu for a little while at the time. He was a blue belt under Roger, and slowly over the course of the next 4 or 5 months, he turned it from a Japanese Jiu Jitsu academy into a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu academy, and the rest is history. That was coming up to 20 years ago.
Wow. So what was? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say like because my first experience with you is actually your infamous Kyra
That-
Gracie pictures.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah,
how
yeah,
long
yeah,
I've been training. I remember seeing those when she put out those pictures, and that like, who is this guy? So I knew that you were sort of a very esoteric, interesting character even back then.
We're
yeah.
talking
For
about.
those who don't know, God, I think that was a long time ago. I think I was still a brown belt at the time.
And I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, I don't even know how that happened. I think my friend just had a pink gi, and
Sure.
and we were just like hanging out at the gym. We were like, screw it, let's do a let's take this photo, let's recreate this Kyra Gracie photo, and it went viral pretty much. And
Oh, I definitely did. It definitely did. It was in
Kyra's
all the websites
was
that moved around
complaining
and all.
about it within 24 hours. So
Who complained about it?
Oh, everyone did.
Oh yeah.
Kyra Gracie did, yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause I
Kyra
had a-
Gracie did. Yeah.
I had a Roger Gracie patch on my gi, and apparently Roger got a message. Just,
Ah,
who's this guy?
yeah. I want to say that might have been my initial introduction to you without realizing it.
Yeah, very possibly.
So before I realized, I think my first video that I ever saw of you was a Polaris match, and
AJ
then
Agazarm, yeah. That's not like 99% of people. They say the first time I saw you was against AJ Agazarm.
That
So
that was a killer match. That was a great
I-
match, but it was a
I
banger.
appreciate that, but it's nice to hear that someone was around beforehand when I was cosplaying as Kyra Gracie.
well, and then I put two and two together when I saw the Polaris match, and I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I think that's that guy that I saw in that meme photo. And I couldn't remember, but
I had to remind him the other day about that when we were talking about you.
well, and I was also
It's-
showing people. I was showing people in the gym this week, because whenever I tell them we have a podcast coming up, we'll talk about it a little bit before the weekend comes around. And I didn't even really explain anything about you. I just said, this is the picture of the guy that we're podcasting with this weekend. And got a lot
Did
of
you use the Kyra Gracie photo?
yeah. They had it side by side. After he sent it to me, I had to show everyone.
Perfect.
But yeah, talk to us a little bit about training with Roger and all that, because I think it's fair to say that a lot of us are, curious about any detail about that relationship, and learning from him, and becoming a black belt through him.
Yeah, so I didn't ever really have much hands-on experience with Roger himself. I was trained mainly under one of Roger's students, Nick Brooks.
Oh,
I
gotcha.
trained with Roger a handful of times, and I got graded by him. Yeah, I've rolled with him a couple of times. It's not a particularly pleasant experience, I'll have to say. But yeah, no, I didn't. Essentially none of my jiu-jitsu is based off of anything that I learned from Roger. Yeah.
Gotcha. And you were saying,
Certainly inspired by him, but
yeah,
never learned directly really.
you were saying that rolling with him is unpleasant. Can you explain why? I mean, I can assume, but I just am curious what his style is like.
Yeah, it's sort of I've rolled with him a few times, gi and no gi. No gi's a little bit better. In the gi, it's just it's a miserable experience. He's sort of like you ever use one of those weighted blankets?
Yeah.
I was
Like one of
about to
those,
say it seems like
that's like 20 pounds or something. Imagine
Yeah.
a weighted blanket that's like 1,000 pounds, and that's what it feels like. You're sort of just like, yeah, the pressure isn't. I compare it. Someone of the similar generation, and obviously not quite at Rogers level, but still like absolutely world class, weighing absolute ADCC champion and multiple time world champion, Bralo Estima, who I've trained with a few times as well. His top pressure, even though he's renowned as a bit more of a guard player, he's got fantastic top pressure. And I remember rolling with Braulio, it's like someone putting an anvil on top of you. Like it's very heavy, direct pressure. Whereas with Roger, it doesn't, you expect it to feel heavier than that, but it's heavier in a more suffocating, drowning, you're at the bottom of the ocean and you've got tons of water weight just on every single millimeter of your body. So, and
I
he's always
always
one
strive
step
for
ahead
that.
of
I
us.
always strive for that. So
Yeah, that's what we try. Yeah, that's what
we
we
all
try to
do.
do. But Roger's the best at it for sure.
Yeah. It was funny. I got in today and got a lift in before this podcast, and I was talking to someone about, we have two black belts in our academy, a guy named Alex and then Ed, and we just randomly started talking about how different their training style is and how different it is to roll with each of them individually. And I explained to my friend, I said, Ed, even though he's your friend, it feels like you immediately get hit by a truck, and then the truck never slows down. So you just keep getting ran over by it. And then Alex, he has a completely different style. Well, he'll let you play around and think that you're doing okay, and he's actually just seeing where your weak points are at before he buries you.
Yeah.
But the Hodger thing definitely made me, think about rolling with Ed as you were describing it. Yeah, and Ed was talking about before the podcast. He was curious what your thoughts are on the sort of eco conversation that's been going on in jiu-jitsu. It's been, like a hot topic, right?
Yes, because I know that just a shout out to Aaron Lynn, who owns Go Forth brand. His academy out in Rockford, they're bringing Greg Sauter out for a seminar. I have my thoughts on it, but I sort of want to think what your take on it. I think it's
try and drag me into the.
of course. I mean, it's a hot topic in the community, so might as well ask.
I consider myself a man of nuance, and everyone's trying to dilute something down into an absolute where there isn't really very many. I think that there's value to be found in anyone who's dissecting and questioning how we do things in anything that we do. I've been a big proponent of live, lots of live training. I've never been a fan. I mean, like the no drilling thing is something that's been around for a really long time. Kit Dale and Dean Lister, and there were loads of guys 10 years ago who were just like, yeah, we don't drill, we just roll and we just play around and stuff. So that's nothing new. This is sort of just the next step of it. So yeah, I agree that there's a lot of the way that I like to teach is and has always been, but over the last 5 years has more so been geared towards more what you would call self-discovery. But I think there's still room for some input and assistance in that. I think anyone who is staunchly in one camp, yeah, I'm not. I'm a little bit more open-minded than that. But yeah, I think live is good. I think mindless drilling has always been a bad thing, kind of a pointless thing. But intentional drilling is very different, and trying to convert that drilling into live scenarios. Live is king. I do believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you were talking about it and explaining it, my mind kind of went off on a tangent, and it reminds me of all the other things that we're experiencing in life right now with social media and all the positives and then all the negatives that it can bring. And so, to your point, it's kind of bringing up something that has been going on for a long time, but now because it's on social media, and the people can discuss it in a way that they were not able to discuss it before. Thousands and thousands of people were not able to discuss that topic before. It was more you had to go to an academy and that's their training style, or you had a buddy who trains a different academy and that's how they do things. And that was like your one experience with it. So it kind of highlights something that has been going on for a long time. And I'm not saying it's bad either, but I feel like that's why it's so in our face now.
Yeah. Well, it's read a really good book last year that kind of makes you see the world differently, which is called The Status Game by Will Storr. And you read that and you'd go, everything makes sense now. The whole world makes sense. All of the bullshit that you see suddenly makes sense, even if it seems completely illogical to you. And it's basically people are just playing various status games. And it comes to your tribalism and why you get such polarizing sides of the aisle. And those people they don't want to be friends, they don't want to agree with each other, they want to be the most right at what they're doing. Otherwise that sort of, even it's completely subconscious.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what happens. You end up having two camps. The people in the camps just want to keep pushing their own thing, and it's not really that helpful for anyone. But
Yeah.
I stay out of that nonsense.
No, that's a great recommendation. I wrote that down. I'm gonna check it
Yeah,
out.
really good book. Yeah.
And while we're sitting here too, I mean, I wanted to ask you what your opinion was on it, because we got kind of Dan's opinion, and my personal opinion is that I just like training jujitsu. So I don't care if we're drilling, I don't care if we're rolling, I don't care if I'm taking a class. I just like.
I'll pick up on that, and that is the most important thing about jiu-jitsu. I mean, a lot of the discussion has been is actually happening around like elite level competitors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when it comes to that, like what's really the goal here? 99% of the people who are training jiu-jitsu are not professional athletes or going to be professional, make any money from the sport.
Yeah.
And 70 or 80% of them are probably never going to compete or not compete seriously.
Yeah.
So even if there is a system that, and this is true of strength training as well, the optimal way of doing something isn't necessarily the way that is going to be most conducive to people being consistent in doing it. In the same way, like, what's the best diet is the one that you stick to, right?
Yeah.
And with that being said, drilling is boring, in my opinion. It is very boring. Repeat a move for 5 minutes and then switch over. You're going to lose. You're going to have a lot of people switch off. So really, people don't like to drill. Nobody likes to drill. They feel like drilling is something that you have to do to be good.
Yeah.
And if you can get, even if a more live or the whatever constraint-led approach, even if it wasn't as effective at actually improving your jiu-jitsu, but it was twice as effective at having fun, I would consider that sort of direction a better way to teach.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I guess, if the student or a lot of your students are no longer training with you because they're not having a good time or they don't think they're doing anything, then that's a problem. It doesn't really matter what works or what doesn't work in that sense,
And that branches out more than just the methodology of the teaching. That is the culture that you have in the gym, and your engagement with your students and the people in the academy as an individual as well.
Yeah.
Just remember that almost everyone that's coming to your jiu-jitsu academy, unless you're teaching out of a gym that is running pro sessions, and these people are in there for a very different reason, which is to make a living from the sport.
Yeah.
But if you're just teaching at a jiu-jitsu academy, like 99% of the jiu-jitsu academies are, your number one priority isn't finding fancy methods of teaching. It's making sure that everyone feels welcome and is having a good time and feels like they're wanted on the mat, And then if you can optimize the time that they spend on the mat to be as enjoyable as possible while still learning how to grapple,
Yeah.
that is really the goal.
And I think one of the principles that we have here is we're trying to create a community,
100%.
because we literally have Chicago is a hotbed of it's starting to become like a big hotbed of jiu-jitsu. I mean, we have Carlson Jr. who lives in the area. He's not too far from here, and even then, he's got affiliates, 2 or 3 in the vicinity. He's got and then there's another school literally not even like a quarter of a mile away from here, and I have to be able to. I'm not trying to sell jujitsu. Everyone knows jujitsu. I feel like I'm selling community along with the jujitsu. It's just what it is here. And I think the more I foster that, and the more I want my students to have fun. I tell them the 3 big things in this order. I tell them stay safe, have fun, and then you learn.
100% agree. That's the way to do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you too, and I apologize in advance if I'm asking you a lot of random questions, but I wanted to take the opportunity to sort of clear the air for myself, but also for a lot of people that have followed you over the years that might not know this information about you. But I wanted to see if you had your own academy, or where you train at, or are you instructing where you teach at? Just wanted to get some information on that as well.
Yeah, so basically my backstory when it comes to teaching at an academy is that I started teaching at a gym called Mill Hill BJJ back in a long time ago when I was about 16. I've been teaching jiu-jitsu since I was 16, and I taught there for 12 years up into 2019. And I left late 2019 with the hope of traveling to train and teach and stuff. And then something happened where I couldn't travel and train. And
Weird, weird, right?
yeah, this little thing happened, but it was probably just me that it happened to. So since then, I have been looking to open my own gym, but I haven't found a location suitable for it yet. So I have just been exclusively teaching seminars and camps for the last 5 years. So I don't teach anywhere on a regular basis. Yeah.
Okay. And what academy do you train at currently, or do you jump around at different places, or?
No, I train at a little gym in North London called The Resistance, which is in a little town called High Barnet.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. My wife and I randomly went to London for my birthday. She surprised me for a birthday trip last year, and we were there for such little time because we just kind of jumped around just to check off the bucket list. And we really, really liked London a lot. So I will have to reach out to you.
Absolutely.
If we come through, and you can put the hurting on me.
I'll do my best.
Talk to me a little bit about some of the competitions that you've done. We talked earlier briefly about the Polaris one, but I know that you've done some ADCC, EBI, and I'd like to dive into those to a degree individually, just kind of what you thought about them, what your takeaway was from those, and then also you to me, it's always different from the person watching from the outside, but you always look like you have a pretty consistent mindset when it comes to competing. You look very collected. You look stoic to a degree. And I just was wanting to find out, sort of how you put that together, or is that something you haven't focused on? It just come naturally to you. So yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't competed much over the last few years. But yeah, over my many years training jiu-jitsu, I've been about around the block a little bit. Yeah, I qualified I won the European ADCC trials in 2011, to really age me, and competed at the Worlds in 2011 in Nottingham. All these fancy, these countries that everyone was going to, and I got a train ticket up to the Midlands, 2 hours away from me. So of all the years that I qualified,
that was one of the best years at ADCC, mind you.
it was a very very good year at ADCC. You're right. 2011 was great. Wasn't great for me. Got submitted by Calazans in my first fight, but it was a great year for ADCC in general. I competed in EBI in 2016, which was a fun experience out in LA, and probably my favorite tournament that I did. I competed in 2 quintets. I competed in quintet 1 with Polaris team, and we managed to win that, and that was just a very, very special event because it was the first ever team grappling event. And we've seen the success of team grappling events ever since then. Obviously, Polaris are really, this year we're doing solely team events, squad events. And I just think that the it's so much more entertaining than, in my opinion, any other format as a show. The team events really are the best. So yeah, that was cool. First quintet in Japan, competed against Sakuraba, which was not, I'd say, a dream come true, but I wasn't even insane enough to dream it. So it was sort of a hallucinogenic dream come true. And yeah, in terms of competition, yeah, I think I'm naturally a relatively stoic person, so I think that just comes through when you compete. I think there's, what do they say, the old saying, you never really know someone until you fight them, right? So, out of some old kung fu film.
Great thing.
But I think that that's true to a degree, and the sort of person that someone is when they compete is an indication of them as an individual. Even if it's almost more of an indication of them as an individual than how you would actually see them day to day. It breaks down the facade of society, and it takes you to a in sort of primordial place, and there's nothing left but the true you. So yeah, that's a very brief run over my my competition background.
Do you have a preferred like rule set, or I mean, there's so many different rule sets nowadays, like with like Polaris and other the
Yeah,
and then
I mean, there's
IBJJF.
yeah, I've never been a massive fan of IBJJF rule sets, with the points and stuff. I mean, I guess there's a difference between the rule set that I think would suit me the best and the rule set that I think is best for entertainment. I think the CGI rule set, specifically, less the rule set and more the slanted walls, I think, are a game changer for grappling.
Oh yeah,
because you have no breaks.
And I've seen academies already put up like slanted walls. I mean, not just the B team, but other places have put it up.
Being built with them. I actually, a couple of weeks before CGI, I was sitting in the gym and I said to my buddy, I said, this event in a few weeks' time, if this goes well with these slanted walls, we could see the architecture of future gyms change forever. Because you go like, do you actually get more out of your gym by taking space away from the gym?
That's a weird and awesome question.
It is because you take away like the meter before the wall, whilst there's a meter there, is not usable because you get close to the wall and you've got to move. If you slant that meter, even though you've taken away the corner of space, you can keep carrying on even whilst you're on the wall. So it's an interesting idea about like actually maximizing and optimizing the square footage that you have in a gym by utilizing slant walls. Now, the problem is that we have with it, really, unfortunately, and I think this is genuinely one of the bigger issues in jiu-jitsu as a whole, is that those slant walls are copyrighted. We can't use them.
Oh, so,
no. Karate Combat has that patented, and it's pretty airtight. So CGI is licensed by them to use it, but Polaris, for example, I'm sure they'd love to use it, even though it's a real ball ache to set up. They would love to use it, and I'm sure lots of other organizations would love to use it. And if every organization started using it, I mean, look, if you started seeing IBJJF and stuff using it, then really that changes the entire sport, and every gym almost has to have the walls.
Yeah.
But even if you saw a few more of the pro tournaments doing it and it became sort of the standard way to show off professional grappling, we'd see more gyms doing it. Whereas right now, it would be for like optimizing space, and it would be fun, and it's like a unique selling point, opposed to we're actually preparing for modern grappling.
Yeah, and so are academies able to purchase those slanted walls from the person that has the patent, or is it being held just for the competitions?
No, I to my understanding, they're not going to go after anyone who's using them in the gym. I actually don't know. It's a really good question.
Yeah.
I don't even think, I don't know if a patent would protect against someone in a gym using it, but that's a good question. To my knowledge,
I would imagine like if there was a company selling it, they would probably go after them. But a gym that pursues it on their own to make it on their own, I think
yeah, but you can't actively buy it. They're not actively selling.
I've seen some companies. I've seen some companies, but I don't know what the deal is with that. If if they're in contact with.
Yeah, there's no proprietary technology involved in it,
Yeah.
right? It's just
Yeah.
supported at a 45-degree angle. So,
Yeah.
I assume it's just for, in the same way that the octagon, no other cage fighting organization can use an 8-sided cage.
Yeah.
If you look at any other MMA organization, they're 7-sided, they're 9-sided, they're circles. You can't use 8 sides. There's only one octagon that belongs to the UFC. So the only slanted walls belong to Karate Combat, and they've got the patterns at various angles as well. So it's not even
Maybe they'll bring.
you can't do 50 degrees and get away with it. It's
maybe they'll bring back, what was that MMA fight?
I
With the
remember.
bowl.
Yeah.
With the bowl.
Yeah.
Like they.
I believe that would be covered under a Karate Combat's pattern.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, or their copyright. Yeah.
They have any odd shape, size, angle.
Yeah. I don't know how to do it. Yeah. I'd say maybe some sort of conveyor belt where they move off like a treadmill and it brings them back to the middle.
Just a conveyor belt jujitsu.
Exactly.
That's some Thunderdome shit right there.
Well, I think the other way that you solve the inactivity off bounds issue is very simple. You introduce a push out rule. You introduce a push out rule, and suddenly everything changes, and the small size or the limited space of a jiu-jitsu mat becomes not a disadvantage or something that can be taken advantage on in order to rest or take a timeout or whatever, but it becomes a tool for the aggressor. So you could fix that very easily. You give a point to someone if they get pushed out of the ring or get pushed off the mat, and you get the go. Nobody wants to get pushed out anymore. They're going to keep the action in the center.
Because I do appreciate the ADC rule about going off the mat, but at the same time, I think it's a safety issue.
Yeah,
because
insane.
It's insane. I mean, I've heard in like video of the rules meaning, like, if it went up into the stands, they'd let it go. They just let it go.
There's videos of Cody Steele, like, at trials 4 meters off the mat with, like, the crowd surrounded them and they're going for submissions. It's insane.
Yeah, I just think at a certain point, because they're doing it like convention centers with concrete, I think I see where they're going with it, but at the same time, it's dangerous.
Yeah, it's fun to watch.
Agree, yeah.
You know, it gives you that kind of like sort of Tourette's, excitement where you're like, oh shit, like something really shouldn't be happening, and it's totally happening right now.
Yeah.
But then there's a what if of what could end up being, which no one wants something like that to happen. But it is really fun to watch, and it's also interesting seeing people do jiu-jitsu on attendees, like, or the camera crew or a scoring table or whatever.
Getting blasted through the scoring table, exactly. Yeah.
Ed was telling me before we got going today that you did kind of like a training seminar for, was it strength training?
It's like your seminar tour where you also combine that with your and I wanted to get into this too, but your tour of was it Scotland and of your
Stones.
The Stones, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Stones and Strangles, which was basically I had a Northern UK seminar tour in early 2020, and I had like 20 or 30 dates around the north of the country, and I had 5 dates around Scotland. And at the time, I was I was interested in going lifting more of the historical lifting stones in Scotland. For anyone who doesn't know, there's very short explanation to catch everyone up on lifting stones.
Sure.
Is essentially every culture in the world at one point utilized stones in some form or another as intentionally to be lifted as a test of strength, a display of strength. Some of them have spiritual connotations. Some of them are competitions. Others are tests to get into, to become a man or to get into a clan or all of this stuff. So basically every culture in the world would have done that at one point because, prior to being able to work metal, stones were the heaviest thing that we could really find, and they're prevalent all over the planet. Some countries still have knowledge of these historical stones. So the main ones that most people know of is Iceland, Scotland. Iceland and Scotland are the main two. In Ireland, a lot of them are being discovered. In Scandinavia, Norway, and Sweden, quite a few are around there, and they're dotted elsewhere around the world. But usually just like there's a famous lifting stone in Greece that has scribed onto it, blah blah blah, lifted the stone. There are stones in Hawaii and in Japan and in Mongolia, and so places all over the world. So I wanted to go and lift some of the ones that were in Scotland, and I was teaching 5 seminars around there, so I thought I'd combine it. As I was going around the whole country, I'd try and, during the day, lift stones by day and teach jiu-jitsu by night.
So brutal.
And I spoke to a buddy of mine who was just getting into videography, and I was like, fuck it, let's film it. This is going to be cool. Let's see how it comes out. And we didn't know whether it was going to be a 15-minute vlog or an hour-long film, and it ended up being 8 episodes, about 15-20 minutes each, which is Stones and Strangles. Yeah. Jiu-jitsu and strength, the disconnect between the two, the like cultural idea that strength training and jiu-jitsu are almost mutually exclusive is not a reality. It's a marketing ploy, because the Gracies, when they wanted to sell the sport originally, was always based on the smaller person defeating the bigger person. Now you can't exalt that philosophy and be seen busting your ass at the gym 3 times a week, right? It almost goes against it, which is why they didn't send Rickson Gracie out for UFC 1, 2, and 3, because he looked too jacked, because he did strength training.
Yeah.
And he was strong. They had to send Royce Gracie because he looked skinnier. And which then, of course, was super ironic when many years down the line, Royce Gracie got busted for PEDs. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So the standard idea that jiu-jitsu doesn't need strength training is not based on the reality of the sport. If you look at other grappling sports, you look at judo, you look at wrestling, you look at catch as catch can, you look at any other grappling sport, there is a massive there's a massive use and implementation of strength training outside, because it is massively important, and it's not just to perform well, be it cardio, strength, but also as a injury prevention. Strength training is massively important. So over the years, all that's really started to happen is that the marketing ploy is starting to melt away a little bit. You see that almost every single person that is at the top level of jiu-jitsu doing some form of strength and conditioning, or they're blasting shitloads of gear, or, which is in the scenario of most cases, they're doing both.
I think it's one of the jokes is because I tell the story about Elio Gracie not wanting to teach big guys, and the whole thing is like giving. I think Pedro Sauer said it was like it was explained to him like, why would you want to teach a big guy jiu-jitsu? It's like giving a serpent wings. And the joke here was I explained that to somebody. I said, yeah, I want to do something like it with the snake with wings. And he goes, my friend goes, did you say steak with wings? So that's what we
good to me.
Yeah, we actually want to make that one of our logos, just like a winged T-bone steak. Just because our guys are pretty beefy here too. So
if we do that,
I like that, the winged snake.
Yeah, if we do that, I'll send you one out.
100% winged snake DJJ.
Yeah. I did have a quick question. Did you grow up in London, or I just wanted to get an idea of a little bit about your background growing up. Me and Ed are, we're from the Midwest. Ed grew up in the city, sort of near the city. I grew up actually kind of like 3 hours from here in more of like a rural / metro area, and then worked very hard to become like a city boy essentially. But I wanted to see what your background was like. How did you grow up? Like, what was your upbringing like? Because a lot of people, I'll be direct, just like you, have very interesting backstories. I just wanted to see kind of like if any of that led you to what you're doing now.
No interesting backstory at all for me, I'm afraid. Born and bred in what I guess in the US you would call like suburban, just outside of North London. No interest at all. Very, very boring upbringing.
Dude, I honestly, in my head, I was like, man, this guy was probably born in an alley somewhere. Like,
I had a question. It's always been thought of the European scene for jiu-jitsu as being very, I wouldn't say low, but it hasn't been in comparison, obviously, to Brazil and the United States. But in the last, I would say, 5-6 years, you have all these really great grapplers like Theon Davies and like the scene in Europe is just it's exploded with so many great jiu-jitsu players. What do you think is sort of that rise? Do you feel like it's because of different training modalities, or it's just it was just that time?
Yeah, you're spot on. Obviously, Brazil was the kings for a long time. Most of Brazilians moved to the US. Big population. There's a lot of emphasis on sport, and so US was the next big wave. Europe has just been a little bit behind for a long time. I was one of the first people from Europe to really be competing internationally. And then we had the second wave coming through, and you're absolutely right. We've got some of the top grapplers in the world now. Theon Davies is the best example. Owen O'Flanagan, a very high level. Owen Jones is a big up and comer. So yeah, it's purely down. We're not doing anything differently. We're lucky in the UK that of everywhere in Europe, it's where the most really high level Brazilians came over. So they planted those seeds about, 15, 20 years ago, and they're starting to come into fruition now. But yeah, we've got great European grapplers in Scandinavia as well. Tommy Lanneker, Espen Mathisen, and Tarek, all of those guys, top level guys from Scandinavia. But yeah, we're seeing a lot better grapplers come through, and I think that will continue to be the case. And who knows where the next, big explosion will be from, where it's a little bit behind Europe.
Yeah, and I did have one last question for you before we wrap this up. You recently did a trip to the United States, and I saw that you were training with David Weck.
Yes, sir.
A little bit, and so I wanted to ask you about that trip. I believe that was a seminar, right? Or oh no, not a seminar. But yeah, go ahead. I just wanted to get a little bit of background on that, your experience, and also your experience with David Weck, because he is obviously, to understate it, a personality all on its own. And so I just wanted to see, like,
You're not wrong.
is he really like that in real life? Like all the above. So go ahead and just kind of give us a rundown on it.
So I first stumbled across David Weck back in like 2017 or 18, like a long time. He just popped onto the scene on social media, and no one really knew about it. He's just the guy who made up the Bosu ball.
Yeah.
And was just putting out insane content, just
For
a
sure.
proper madman.
Yeah.
Which he is.
Definitely.
But maybe it's the mad genius, right? It's certainly mad, and he might be a genius.
Yep. I feel you.
So I've been following him for a long time, and I would play around from afar with some of his concepts. And then in September last year, I went and did the Weck Method certification, and I met him in person. He was following me back at that point, and we'd had a little bit of interaction.
Yeah.
But we met in person, and we got on, and I really got to understand the full Weck Method philosophy of training.
Yeah.
Which really, the problem I'd say with David and Weck Method training is that out of context, it looks completely batshit crazy. It really does. There's no doubt about it. I totally empathize with people. But it just looks insane. But once you spend a couple of hours into the cert, even though just a level 1 cert's really, really useful, you start to understand it a little bit more. And it starts to dictate how you see movement a little bit. And I think that there is certainly some value in that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I met him. I did the cert, and he invited me to stay with him in San Diego. So I thought, okay, yeah. And then at the beginning of the year, and when December, I just thought, January is a little bit cold and wet and miserable over here. I bet it's nicer in San Diego.
Oh, damn sure.
So I went and spent 2 weeks in San Diego. I lived in David's apartment with him.
Oh yeah.
And the nice thing about the Weck Method lab is that it is not only do I get to train with the Weck people, but it's a real hub of impressive athletes and really out of the box, like strength and fitness training people.
Yeah.
So I got to meet a lot of really cool people through David. Timing wise, I was lucky. They were having like a quote unquote influencer get together in the first weekend that I was there. So I was privileged to meet a lot of cool people through that.
Yeah, I got the networking side.
Absolutely. And then the weekend after was the Landmine University certification. Landmine University is another person I've been following for a long time and has been like interested in the methodology, but had never really done much of it. And again, that I feel like Landmine combined with your understanding of the wet method stuff, the Landmine University stuff is good, and it really puts into like a practical application the WEC method, like rotational movement training stuff.
Yeah.
When you put those two things together, it really starts to make sense.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to look into that and see what that combo is about. I have progressively over the years gotten a little bit more into the landmine. I think at first I avoided it like the plague because of my training background. I was like bodybuilding, powerlifting, landmine. I don't know, man. Like, but I've definitely started using it a lot with my clients too, and also myself. And so maybe that's something that I can lean into just for change of pace and also results.
100%.
Yeah, it was really fantastic having you on. We definitely would like to do another podcast with you at some point. So I'll let you know. And, if you're ever in Chicago, we'd love to have you into the gym. We'd love to have you in the academy. We can do a seminar. And then
I'm hoping, fingers crossed, the plan for me, if I can sort out a work visa, I'd like to come back to the States beginning of sort of the first quarter of next year and do a road trip around the country and teach and meet people. So I'd love to come to Chicago. Never been. I'd love to do some jiu-jitsu stuff, some strength stuff, and hopefully I can make that work.
Yeah, and my goal eventually is to try to get our crew to get over to Europe at some point, somehow.
Yeah, but try to figure out different stuff too. Like, I have a friend out in the Philippines. Me and him are trying to put something together.
Amazing.
Do like one of those trading getaways.
Yeah.
So.
And then we have a friend in Germany, Alleyway Jiu Jitsu.
Yeah, Alleyway Jiu Jitsu in Hamburg.
Awesome.
And so we're going to try to see if we can figure out some wild trip or multiple trips to go and train, but also to go meet people and just kind of network like you were talking about when you came over here. But yeah, thank you so much for doing this. It was really awesome. It was nice to meet you and chat with you for a little bit.
Before we leave, do you where can people find you? Social media. I know you've got your podcast.
Yep. So the best place to find the main hub is Instagram. My handle is @raspberry_8. I have a YouTube. It's generally old videos from the podcast. That's youtube.com/raspberry. Basically, if you search for Raspberry, you'll find me. And then I have my website, which is apeacademyonline.com, which is where I've got some of my programs and instructionals and stuff like that.